I think it's safe to say that Arcane is one of the most impressive pieces of animation ever made. Fortiche have done an amazing job, from the art style to the animation to the sound design. This was a show that kind of came out of nowhere to become one of the most popular animated shows of the past 10 years. The first season is incredibly well written, well paced, well made. It's essentially flawless, so the wait for a second season was an excruciating one. Obviously, it was going to take a long time to make, which only added to the anticipation. Finally releasing in November 2024, 3 years after the show's initial debut, it got mostly positive reviews, with some taking issue regarding pacing. I watched the new season basically as soon as it came out and, despite what many were saying online, I thought this was one of the most disappointing seasons of TV I'd ever seen. All of the technical elements were still top-notch, there's no denying that, but the writing, the pacing, and the characters were all massively impeded by a story that is so rushed it feels like 3 seasons worth of plot condensed into just 9 episodes. Before I get into the issues, I want to talk about what I liked about the second season. Visually, the show is still stunning. The level of care and attention to detail is unbelievable. You can tell that every frame is made with so much love. This, combined with the exceptional sound design, creates such a rich and visceral world. It does an amazing job at immersing the viewer in Piltover and Zorn. Also, the soundtrack is stellar. I would say it's better than Season 1 actually, especially with tracks like Sucker to Ashes and Blood. My favorite track from the season, by far, my favorite track from this season, by far, The Line by 21 Pilots. If you haven't already, go and listen to the live version at the Game Awards. It's an amazing performance, ever so slightly marred by favoritism. Oh, and let's not forget Ma Meilleure Ennemie as well. Absolutely brilliant. The show incorporates music from a wide variety of artists in a way that really underlines the tone of the show, as well as the emotional heart of each scene, without having the more well-known artists outshine the lesser-known ones. On a technical level, this show is second to none, and Season 2 exemplifies this brilliantly. The voice acting, as always, is top-notch. Haley Steinfeld and Ella Pennell are incredible as Vi and Jinx respectively, but I also really appreciated Harry Lloyd's performance this season too. I could go on and on, but honestly I feel like I would just be repeating the same points over and over again. It's just kind of impossible to deny that this show is incredibly well made. Now, I want to talk about the characters so badly because oh boy do I have some thoughts, but I think my grievances will make much more sense once we get into the story. To start, the first season story is so good. It tells an incredibly compelling narrative about family, class and social divide, betrayal, ambition, politics. All of these themes are explored through multidimensional characters from across the social spectrum, all with their own unique motivations and flaws. It was able to balance all of this whilst also being experimental in its delivery too. I mean, how many TV shows can you list that have a significant time jump after the 3rd episode of the first season? Not only does Arcane do this, but it's able to pull this off flawlessly whilst maintaining the pace and tone of the larger narrative. It also ends on a pretty spectacular cliffhanger, which leaves so many threads hanging in the balance of one final dramatic act. A brilliant season of television capped off with a cliffhanger that doesn't feel cheap, as many often do. Needless to say, the second season was highly anticipated. And to be fair, it has a pretty great start. It picks up immediately where the last season left off. And I like the first few episodes quite a lot actually. They cover the aftermath of Jinx's attack both in Piltover and Zorn, and we see previously unexplored aspects of the Undercity, specifically the Chem Barons and their role in ruling the lanes. But even when I first watched the season, it felt like something was missing. It didn't really have the same oomph as the first season. I couldn't quite put my finger on it at the time, but upon rewatching it, I think it might actually just be the nature of second seasons. A lot of the time, they can feel strangely paced because they start not from the beginning of a story, but from an immediate continuation, and so they have the unfortunate job of reintroducing the world as the start of a new season, whilst also resuming a story that the audience is already familiar with. From this perspective, it honestly didn't bother me too much. Plus, I was still really enjoying the show, for the most part, but we'll get into the other issues later. Episode 4 ends with a confrontation between Jinx and the resurrected Vanda at the prison. A pretty insane moment in a pretty insane episode. And then there's episode 5, Blisters and Bedrock. This was the big turning point for me personally. It went from quite a focused exploration of the aftermath of Jinx's attack to straight up shitsville. Why is that, I hear you ask, through your screen to me directly right now? The whole narrative about the gangs in Zorn is just fucking dropped. I'm not kidding. This power struggle in the Undercity is just completely sidelined in favor of uncovering the mystery behind Vanda's return, and also whatever the fuck is going on with Mel and her brother. These were, up until this point, B-plots at most. Hell, the whole Vanda thing was basically a C-plot until this full reveal in the previous episode. Now we have an entire episode dedicated to these two narratives, in a season with 9 episodes, and an already established main plot that just took an insane turn. This is where I started to get concerned. This didn't feel like a natural evolution of the narrative at all, but more like the show trying to get to a specific point, and had to tick off certain boxes in order to get there, which is also reflected in how this episode is written. It's so heavy on the exposition. It's to the point where characters are talking in ways they never have before, just to get a certain piece of information across to the audience. Arcane has always been good at writing scenes that deliver exposition in organic ways, whilst also including significant character progression, which is a pretty difficult task. It's a testament to the skill of the writers that they were able to pull this off in every episode for an entire season. I mean, there's a reason it won this many Emmys. But now, out of nowhere, an entire narrative thread is dropped, and now characters are outright explaining things to the audience for no reason, and the exposition isn't even fucking clear. Like, what's up with Mel? Why does the Black Rose want revenge? Why are they using Mel for their vengeance against her mother? Also, what new research does Rennick gain from bringing Vanda back like this? How to turn his own daughter into a big scary hairy boy? Wouldn't it have been easier and, I don't know, made more sense if he tried resurrecting Vanda as a fucking human being? So not only have we dropped whatever it is we were talking about before, but what we're talking about now doesn't even make any sense. We also get insane leaps in deductive logic too, with this line from Caitlin.
The beast came for you. It was summoned by you.
How, and I repeat how, could you possibly know this? Either you have foresight, omniscience, or Rennick already told you, in which case you wouldn't be saying this. Which one is it, Caitlin? I'll be back for you later, you absolute fucking... Episode 6 doesn't fare any better either, by the way. It's also filled with nonsense, although at the very least it's the nonsense we're familiar with. Our gang of shitfits go to Victor's little cult of healing to try and bring Vanda back to a more concrete human form. To be fair, these are some of my favourite moments in the whole show. I love Jinx and Vi's dynamic now that they're working together. Isha is an adorable new addition to this little group too, and it says a lot about Victor that he's willing to help Vanda to the best of his ability. Then Jace rocks up, gets flashbacks from the France Island match, hip fires Victor, then all hell breaks loose. This is genuinely such a crazy end to the episode, and Isha's sacrifice, although personally I didn't find it too emotionally impactful because I didn't feel like we got enough time between her and Jinx, was still executed brilliantly, and I really love the change in animation style to show her perspective. Then, Episode 7. This might be my favorite episode in the whole show. Everything about this episode is incredible. Questions are answered, yet by the end there are still some lingering mysteries. The relationship between Echo and Jinx here is... I genuinely don't even have the words. I love it so much. It's such a creative episode with wide-reaching implications, yet it still feels focused and doesn't stray too far into the marvelization of the multiverse concept. It's heartbreaking, triumphant, glorious, and depressing all at once. The last 2 episodes are basically Arcane's take on Avengers Endgame, and I have too many issues with this, so I'm going to do a lightning round of everything that's wrong from a narrative perspective with the finale of Arcane. Okay, here we go. Would Mel actually believe the Black Rose here? I get that she knows her mum is evil, but she also knows that the Black Rose deceives people. She literally just escaped from one of their tricks like a second ago. Would you really believe them this quickly? Maybe just a nitpick, but food for thought. I'm so glad we spent time with this truly important character who will play a pivotal role in things to come. What was Caitlin tricked into doing exactly? Wasn't she on board with Ambessa's plan the whole time? Am I missing something? Oh, I'm sorry. Does the show expect us to forget the fact that only 4 episodes ago, Caitlin wanted to kill Jinx so badly, she shot at a child? Now all of a sudden she wants to chat? Why are they sat here chatting about setting up defenses? Why aren't they there already? Nothing's stopping them.
Victor's at the center of all this, isn't he?
Huh? Has Jace told you fucking nothing about any of this? Why are you asking questions like this now? And why, on God's green earth, is no one else helping Jace here? All we need to do is empty out the hex thing and destroy the tubes. Can we really not spare 2 or 3 other soldiers to lend a hand? You just gotta take them out, smash them, and Robert is your father's brother. Those are most of my issues with the last 2 episodes from a more analytical perspective. But even when we zoom out a bit, it's kind of wild how we got here. We went from Chem Barons to chasing a big wolf man to an alternate dimension to fighting skinny Thanos in the space of a single season. If you were to watch the first episode of the season, then immediately skip to the final one, not only would you have no idea what's going on, but you wouldn't even be able to recognize half the fucking people on the screen. If it isn't clear enough, this isn't a compliment. You go back to the first season and do the same, you can at least infer a lot of the shit that's going on and can at least imagine how they got from A to B. This is not at all the case in the second season. Hell, even if you watch the second season from beginning to end, there's a lot of shit that still doesn't make any sense by the final episode. They've crammed 3 seasons worth of content in a single 9-episode run, leading to drop plot lines, rushed pacing, and worst of all, terrible character writing. Speaking of, the characters this season are so poorly written, it's wild. And for a show that's known for its complex characters, it's crushing. Motivations are either unclear or switched on a dime, character relationships develop in very bizarre ways, and some character arcs straight up don't exist. But for now, let's start with Victor. He's one of my favorite characters in the first season. Him and Jace are two sides of the same twisted coin, letting their personal feelings infect their intellect and ambitions. Where these two end up at the end of the first season is such an amazing and natural progression for their characters. It sets up the continuation of their stories so well. But what happens with Victor here is kind of baffling. He emerges from a cocoon and just kind of becomes a messiah, then the main villain. Did we miss 6 seasons and a movie's worth of character development? He goes from, I would really like to fix my condition, to, I would really like to fix everyone's condition, to, I would like to press pause on reality indefinitely to make sure nothing bad ever happens again, in the space of one single season. He's basically the Daenerys of Arcane, an entire arc skipped for time so that we can get the love child of Jesus and the T-3000, a villain so forgettable I had to look it up. The only silver lining about this character is that I could see him becoming this eventually. Not in the space of a single season, but over time for sure. The same cannot be said, however, for Vi. Arcane Season 2 completely obliterated her character from the very first episode. No, Caitlin, I don't want to join the organization that killed my parents, and also how dare you bring this up in the first place? Oh wait, no, just kidding. In fact, I was kidding so much that now I'm okay with gassing the people I was trying so desperately to fight for. What are we talking about here? Was there a fucking gas leak at the studio when they were writing her character arc? Who thought this was a good idea? She is one of 2 characters who would never join the Enforcers under any circumstances, and the other character is her sister. Out of everything that I'm going to cover in this video, I want to make it ultra clear that this choice is my least favorite thing about the whole show. But what about Senor Golden Boy? All of the complexity developed with Jace's character in the first season fucking disappears here. He becomes such a one-dimensional character with no real depth, and he's full on missing for like a third of the show. But even when he's there, he's either curious about the weird anomaly or he wants to kill Victor. That's it. That's all his character has to offer. Mel doesn't fare much better either. There's an interesting dynamic with her mom, sure, but the rest of the time we see Mel, it kind of seems like she exists to set up the Black Rose storyline and become/reveal herself as a witch. It's not bad exactly, but it just feels lacking. The only character I really liked this season was Jinx, but that's because she's the only one with an actual arc that makes sense and doesn't feel too rushed. For the first time in her life, she has a responsibility greater than herself in the form of not only her supporters, but also Isha. This drastically changes her outlook on the conflicts in her life, and it's an interesting 180 dynamic that she has with Vi towards the end of the show, where actually she's the one who wants to fix their relationship, and Vi wants nothing to do with her. I also really liked Echo this season too, but honestly it's mainly because of his actions in episodes 7 and 8. I love that they dedicated episode 7 to what they do best, writing incredible characters. And I love that Echo gets to be the center of that episode. Him grappling with the pain of the past, mixed with his feelings of Jinx, makes for such a compelling arc, and the way it's handled is just beautiful. Understanding and eventually uplifting the good that fundamentally exists within Jinx, and then to mirror the support and love in his own dimension despite the agony that she's caused him is just amazing. As stated by Amanda Overton, one of the writers and co-producers on the show, this is about breaking the cycles of violence. I also genuinely think his relationship with Jinx is much better this season than Kate Vi, and it takes up a fraction of the show's time over both seasons. Besides that though, I didn't really like how any of the other characters were written. I especially don't like when characters are introduced and who seem like they're going to play a pivotal role in the story only for them to be a footnote. Cough cough. It feels like characters and concepts were introduced as fan service when they mean nothing to the broader audience that enjoys the show, like LeBlanc and the Black Rose. I don't know what any of this means. I wouldn't mind it as much if the show is predicated on you knowing the lore from the game, but this isn't what the show is at all. Firstly, the first season balanced this perfectly by having references to the game without them playing a major role that would alienate those who don't know what the game is about. Secondly, the show deviates from the game's lore anyway, granting even less of an incentive to investigate the original lore as it's not relevant to the show. But the way that LeBlanc and the Black Rose are introduced makes it seem like you're supposed to know who they are. This kind of stuff never happened in the first season. Why, all of a sudden, is the audience being treated as if they know the lore and the characters from the game? And this is exemplified in the trailer for Welcome to Noxus, which released shortly after the second season. It's filled with characters I don't recognize at all besides Mel, yet it almost feels like we're supposed to know who these people are by how they're presented. And hey, I'm all for fan service, but I think it needs to be done in a very selective way so as to not alienate those who don't know who these people are. It would be very, very different if the appreciation of the show was predicated on having previous knowledge of the lore. For example, and I know I'm clearly showing my bias here, but there's quite a lot of Warhammer media that exists which I think does this quite well. You can watch Astartes or the Secret Level episode without really knowing anything about the universe and still enjoy it and understand what's going on for the most part at least. Astartes would have been way worse if, in one of the later parts, Cor Phaeron played a massive role in the narrative. Now, all of a sudden, the broader demographic has no clue what's going on or who this guy is, and only us cave dwellers would be able to appreciate this reference. So it's just sort of disappointing that Arcane chose to take this turn. But back to the characters, arcs are rushed, leading to said characters making uncharacteristic decisions. I have to stop saying character at some point, or they simply feel incomplete. But in no one does this feel the most prevalent than the worst written character this season. I'm talking, of course, about Caitlyn. It's no surprise, everyone and their grandmother has been talking about her. Everything that gets built up for Caitlyn in the first season is abandoned here to have her go on an extreme vengeance arc that just didn't really fit her character at all. Why spend all that time having her in the Undercity, developing her relationship with Vi, acknowledging the class divide and the need for cooperation between Piltover and Zorn, when you're gonna say fuck it and have her gas the Undercity and attempt to kill a child? She wants to kill Jinx so badly that she's willing to kill a child. How is this never brought up for the rest of the fucking season? I get that she feels guilty about it afterwards, but that doesn't change the fact. She joins forces with Ambessa, a known warmongering tyrant, and is then surprised when she turns out to be a warmongering tyrant? Huh? And by the way, how the fuck is Vi okay with this? They end up together at the end of the season, but like, why is Vi willing to forgive Caitlyn? Out of love? You fucking kidding me? Now, the problem with the other characters boils down to general issues that exist within the season. It's covered vaguely in interviews and behind the scenes stuff, but the problem with Caitlyn, and by extension her relationship with Vi, seems to be primarily caused by one person in particular. This individual is the previously mentioned Amanda Overton. She has a really strange way of answering questions which fly in the face of what Arcane stands for. For example, when asked about the season, Christian Link and Alex Yee, the show's creators, are quite candid about fan disappointment.
I would find it really hard in a forum like this to talk about stuff that I didn't like or stuff that I felt like I was on the other side of, but I super appreciate that you did. It gives me more, to think about. And really truthfully, there's no part of me that would not want you to,
To those who are not happy, sorry that we didn't hit what you wanted, but there's simply no way where we can please everybody. And we're trying our best, to make as many players as possible happy. But again, we need to follow also our own compass, like this. At the end of the day, we need to be the shepherds of this IP and of this game. And this stuff, creative is hard, So we'll keep doing that, and if that means that, we'll ruffle some feathers, sometimes that's simply part of it, and that's okay.
Overton, on the other hand, took a decidedly different approach during an interview with Inverse in December 2024. Both Overton and Link addressed disappointing fans with perceived rushed pacing. The style of animation and sheer amount of information conveyed in just 9 episodes is meant to be digested slowly, Overton says. Everything is very dense and layered. There's so much meaning in every visual, Overton says. You can pause every frame and treat it like a work of art that you can examine for meaning. She continues, I'm really hoping that people will go back and spend time with the story and engage with it, engage with the audience and community. Your response to criticism about the pacing is to tell people to watch it slower? What am I supposed to watch it at fucking 0.5 speed? How am I supposed to digest it slowly if it's paced so fucking fast? It's like asking someone to inspect each passing blade of grass when you're on a bullet train. Okay, sure, maybe it's unfair to criticize a single answer that she gave. People say things in interviews that might not make a lot of sense, or hell, people say things that you might just simply disagree with too. So instead, let me criticize multiple things she said in interviews as opposed to criticizing just the one. When talking about the now famous sex scene, Overton says, we finally get to answer what would Vi do if she didn't have anything left to protect. Overton says she would choose Kate. Couple things. Firstly, Jinx heavily implies she's going to cease her own existence before attempting to do so in the next episode. So instead of saving her sister's life in the moment, she decides to have sex with Caitlyn? Oh, also, since when was this a theme in the show at all? This idea of not being able to be with Caitlyn because of her protection over Jinx. I remember Kate Vi trying to kill Jinx in episode 4, and I remember when Caitlyn was willing to potentially kill her child to get to Jinx, but I can't remember this idea of them not being able to be together because she was protecting Jinx. But also, why can't Vi do both? She reconciled with her sister anyway, so why can't she have a good relationship with both people? I mean, hell, Caitlyn is even willing to talk to Jinx at this point. We just saw that happen. So them being on speaking terms is a hell of a lot better than them being on killing terms. Also strange, considering the fact that both before and after this scene, Vi is protecting people, to the point where it almost seems in her nature to do so. Why do these things have to be mutually exclusive? When speaking about episode 7, Overton calls it a standalone episode that was sort of outside of what Arcane traditionally is and was. What? This is the most traditionally Arcane kind of episode there is. It's a grounded, character-focused episode with actual progression. It's not some exposition-heavy crawl through random bland scenes like the episodes preceding and following it. Amanda, why are you just saying random things? But seriously though, why is she saying this? I get wanting to promote the show considering the fact that she's a co-producer, but her comments are just so strange. The only reason I can think of, considering everything I've read so far, is that there is no ulterior motive to what she's saying. Everything that she says seems to be exactly what she thinks. I just happen to disagree with it. I say this because there are actually quite a few things that she says that I really appreciate. When talking about Kate Vi, she says, "I'm writing for my 16-year-old self, so now other young girls can hopefully feel seen through these stories and be inspired and empowered to tell their own stories or live their own life in a more authentic way." I love this quote. Sure, I don't think Vi would just abandon her sister like that, especially after clearly feeling awful about the idea of her sister not being alive. And I think the way that Amanda describes the scene is just super ignorant to the rest of the show and its propensity for calling out toxic relationships and allowing this one to exist in the state that it is. And sure, I don't believe that Vi would ever actually end up with Caitlyn, considering the fact that Caitlyn was willing to kill a child, but with all that being said, I still really like this quote. There's something about artists creating work that they wish they could have experienced growing up, and it's especially important with regards to representation. Arcane is one of the only shows that is this open about a homosexual relationship, and it is very unique about the way in which this relationship is presented. And this isn't just me saying this. There's a petition for an extended cut of their sex scene that has close to 80,000 signatures on change.org. Clearly, this scene is important to many people, and even just reading discussions on Reddit, it's clear to see that this relationship means a lot to a lot of people. Regardless of everything that I've said here, and regardless of what anyone else can say about this on-screen romance, nothing can change the effect that it's had on the fans of the show, and I think that's really great. So look, I think I made it pretty clear that I have a lot of issues with both the story and the characters, and I'm not the only one who had a lot of issues with the season either. But the question is, how did this happen? How did one of the most beloved first seasons get such a controversial follow-up? To answer these questions, we need to turn to the creators. The post-finale interviews are strange to say the least. It doesn't really feel as triumphant as you'd assume it would be. It's not quite Game of Thrones levels of awkwardness,
Best season ever!
but there does seem to be an awareness that people are definitely going to have issues with this season. It's clear that Christian Link is much more confident in answering certain questions than Alex Yee, and even in Yee's interview with Travis Scafford, it's outright stated that he doesn't have as much experience with regards to promoting the show.
You tend to take a more quiet background role in a lot of media opportunities, and Christian usually runs out to the front in front of you. So it's fun to have you on to chat with you.
I will endeavor to give you the cool responses and not the reasons that I'm like, Christian's really good at this, and that's a great reason to put him in front.
That being said, there does seem to be an overall understanding that this season won't be for everyone. Based on their answers, they were trying to do multiple things at the same time this season. Namely, creating a satisfying conclusion to the story, differentiating this season from the first by having it be more conceptual and experimental, and setting up the necessary narrative elements for spin-offs. This is a lot to do in any season of a show, but it's especially tricky to fit it all into just 9 episodes. Not only that, but all of these goals contradict one another in some way. Continuing the narrative from the first season while making the second one more conceptual is a massive undertaking because of just how grounded the narrative was up to this point. There's no way that someone could reach the end of the first episode and predict that 6 episodes later, we would be seeing an alternate dimension. On top of that, there's an entire subplot dedicated to setting up a spin-off show set in Noxus. So the first reason is predicated on prior knowledge of the show, and the third reason is predicated on prior knowledge of the game, which the first season didn't have. You didn't need to know anything about League of Legends to understand the first season. Now all of a sudden you need to know what the Black Rose is, and LeBlanc and Flores, and the significance of this fucking crow at the end. I shouldn't need to Google the meaning of the shit you're showing me to understand what's going on. No wonder the pacing felt insane. They're juggling multiple different things at the same time. But they also did something else. Something that made everything worse. That's right, they wrote the ending first. I shouldn't have to explain why this is a bad idea, but I will anyway. Now, before I continue, I want to clarify that I'm not a screenwriter, nor a regular writer either, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I can do any better, because I likely can't. These are wildly talented and competent artists creating something that they are clearly passionate and proud of. However, writing the ending first, especially after the first season, is a terrible idea. If you write the ending first, the characters and narrative are course corrected to reach that ending regardless of where they stand at the beginning of the season. Doing this for the first season of a show can work because, generally speaking, there's no prior knowledge or circumstance that is suddenly bottlenecked. But doing this for any following season can, and usually does, result in very awkward storytelling. Overton even describes this as earning certain moments, which just feels so disingenuous. Firstly, as a creator, you don't decide whether or not something is earned, the audience does. Secondly, writing the ending first and forcing the narrative to reach that ending isn't earning anything. It ruins the tone of the show because it's always been about characters first, whereas now it's predominantly about moving the plot forward to attain the pre-planned conclusion. That's why so many scenes are so exposition heavy. It's why characters act out of character. It's why the pacing feels so strange. It's got nothing to do with going back and taking everything in at a slower pace. You chose to write the season this way and it results in a rushed mess. Although the show looks and sounds incredible, you can't carry an entire season on technical ability alone. At some point, the writing issues are going to be too glaring to ignore, and for Arcane Season 2, the problems take center stage from the very first episode. It's an ambitious season with a lot of truly creative ideas, but it feels far too cramped and rushed. This should have been spread over at least another season, if not another 2. I'm not saying that I don't like this season either, I still enjoyed watching it. I'm just so disappointed by how they chose to handle the finale of what is otherwise a groundbreaking achievement not only in animation, but filmmaking as a whole. And I want to make something really clear too. Shows like Arcane should be praised, and we should be striving to make more shows like this. I hope that Arcane is used as a template to inspire future filmmakers for generations to come. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.